Hey, everybody, it's Devin.
And Kate.
Welcome to Mid Crimes.
Here we are.
Hi.
Here we are.
It's late night.
It's late night.
Kate and I were talking that when we were going to record today, that she said to me, let's make it a late night. And then, hey, remember late night? So did any of you in college experience a late night where it's 10 o'clock at night and everybody's still awake because you're in college? I mean, now 10 o'clock at night, if I'm up, there's a problem. And all of a sudden, everybody just hits the dining hall and has fried food.
There literally was like a slot that the dining hall was open and it was called late night.
For like an hour.
For like an hour or two, from like
Yes.
10 to midnight or
Yes.
something. And then you could just like go if you were still up and like get some food.
I think that was
Kept
the
us off the
plan
streets.
to like help absorb the alcohol.
Yeah.
Feed the students.
Feed the
So
students.
that you can burn off some alcohol.
Yep. And also so they don't have to leave campus to
Yes.
go look for food if they're
Yes.
hungry and
Yes.
inebriated.
Absolutely.
It was a beautiful thing. Thank you.
So welcome to our episode of Late Night.
Yes. This has been great. So we have Patreons.
We all have Patreons.
Maybe not all of us, but we
You and I-
have
you and I do.
Patreons. We have the Patreons. So we have Chris N.
Hi, Chris N.
What up, Chris N?
What up? Katie Moore.
Hi, Katie Moore.
Katie Moore. Welcome to the family.
What a nice first name you have, Katie.
Mm.
We have Nancy Israelson.
Oh, that's a good one. I love that.
Rare.
She gave me this one. I apologize now. Now I'm gonna go with Natalie.
I think it's
is that a
Nathanly or something? Nathanly?
Nathalie? Oh
Nathalie?
God, honey,
Nathalie?
help us out.
Yeah,
It could be a silent H.
Could be.
Natalie.
could be.
Nathalie Ireland.
We love you.
Nathalie Natalie Ireland. We're giving
Yes.
you a middle name. I really apologize.
Yes.
Oh, please don't be offended,
Yeah,
sweetheart.
we love you.
We appreciate you.
Yeah, you're great. And then Whitney Stewart. That was the easy one that I saved for myself.
She's so nice of you.
Hi, Whitney Stewart.
Please correct us in the comments when you see this episode. Hear this
Yes.
episode.
We love you guys, and I know exactly what you are. You know what you are? You are dryads.
She looked it up.
I looked it up as always nowadays. Dryads are forest nymphs
In the forest.
who resemble the trees that they inhabit, and they are the guardians of the forest and all of its little critters.
Critter, critter.
Critter, critter. So you guys,
Welcome, dryads.
thank you, dryads.
We love you.
We frickin'
Again,
love you.
Couldn't do any of this without any of you.
No, we're here because of you. So I've got a good one for you guys. This one has been so heavily requested for all 3
Uh-oh.
seasons.
I have no idea what we're talking about.
No, you don't. And it's
Wait,
the best.
for 3 seasons?
Like,
This has been requested?
since we started, people have been asking us to cover this,
And
and
why haven't we done it before?
I don't know. I feel like the cases pick me. You know,
Oh.
it's one of those things where like I got to be in like the right mindset for the right case at the right time.
Yeah.
And I feel like we've had a lot of like big systemic things that we've covered and like these big government level things that we've covered. And like, I just found myself really wanting to cover like first of all, we haven't done much or anything at all with nursing assistants,
No.
right?
Gosh. No.
Have we done anything? I don't think so.
I think we said I think Gypsy Rose's mother was a nursing assistant. That might have been the only thing.
Okay,
But
yeah, you're
again,
right.
that was not the basis of the
Again,
crime.
that was more like
that was not that was just like an
Munchausen's.
add-on.
Exactly. So, and I wanted to just do like a case, like a situation, like a crime.
Because it wasn't a nursing assistant that impregnated that woman.
No, he was an LPN.
That was an LPN.
Yes, because that's
Okay.
the other one I was thinking of.
Yep.
So I wanted to just like kind of dive into something different, and I've kind of had this on the back burner, but I was like, you know what? Now's the time.
Okay, so what did this nursing assistant do?
So there are actually 2 of them.
Oh.
This is Gwendolyn Graham and Kathy Wood.
Okay.
And these 2 were actually nominees on the Patreon vote. And this is a really interesting, really twisted case. Going to be a two-parter.
Two-parter.
I can't help myself.
Cheers.
Woo!
Cheers.
I still can't help myself.
You know what that means?
I still can't be brief.
Do you know what that means? Because I said to you, I got the next one. So that means I got another month to put my shit together.
You are a lucky banana.
To get my shit together.
Put your shit together. Put it together. So Gwendolyn Graham and Kathy Wood were 2 American serial killers and licensed nursing assistants.
Serial killers.
Whom were convicted of killing 5 elderly women.
Oh, no.
In Walker, Michigan in 1987.
In our setting? Was it in our type of setting? Oh, gosh.
I know.
Oh, this is going to be hot.
And this was at their place of employment, which was a skilled nursing facility and long-term care center called Alpine Manor.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
So they most likely had around 10 to 12 victims in total. 5 is not the only few people that this touched.
Oh, God, I'm intrigued.
And they also had attempts at murder that were failed.
I feel like listening to this, I am taking off my director of nursing hat.
Yeah, if you would.
In a long-term care facility.
If you may want to put the hat in the drawer.
I feel like my mind is going to be spinning.
Oh my goodness. You're going to lose it. You're going to lose it because, and we'll talk more about the setting and what the day-to-day looks like and what the role of the LNA is so that you guys all have context for.
Oh God, I got a soapbox. I got a soapbox on the role of the licensed nursing assistant.
I literally wrote down my soapbox for the role of this. So we're going to soapbox this together.
Because you guys are so important.
So important that we would all just
you're the backbone of the long-term care facility.
Or drown without you. Like it's just wild. So the media dubbed this the Lethal Lovers. The Lethal Lovers.
Were they lovers?
Mm-hmm.
It was Katie?
Kathy and Gwendolyn.
Kathy and Gwendolyn. All right.
And they also were dubbed a match made in hell. So like a lot of big dramatic like media names.
You know how they got to make a title.
This is a twisted tale of star-crossed lovers and betrayal and murder and manipulation. They played games. They played cat and mouse.
Oh boy.
They victimized elderly, disabled people while in their most vulnerable state. Like, these are some of the most garbage humans, I think, in existence.
I am not prepared for this.
So, trigger warnings here. We're going to go over their early lives. There is some child abuse. We're not going to get really heavily into detail because I don't have a whole lot of detail there. There's mention of sexual abuse, elder abuse, of course, and there's even a brief mention of animal abuse.
Wow.
So we are going to start off with Gwendolyn Graham.
First of all, love that name.
Gwendolyn
Graham.
That is a very timeless and like classic name. Gwendolyn Graham.
She's got that going for her.
She's got like the name going for her. That's about all she has. So without further ado. Gwendolyn Graham was born August 6th, 1962 in San Bernardino County, California. She didn't stay in California long. Soon after her birth, her parents actually relocated. What happened was soon after she was born, her parents got divorced. Okay. So she left her home in San Bernardino to stay full-time with her father, who moved her and her brother to Tyler, Texas. And they lived on a farm. And so she was raised on this big farm in Tyler, Texas. Unfortunately, her childhood has been described as very unfortunate, to say the least. So evidently she was raised by parents when she was an infant and her parents were together. Her parents evidently didn't believe in holding babies or physically comforting their children at all. And
cry it out.
There's actually a quote here that said, they held a belief that holding babies made them weak.
No.
I mean, I the cry it out method, this is beyond that. You know what I mean? Like, this is beyond that. This is like neglect and abuse.
I dissent.
Not providing any love to your child. So as a result, reportedly, Gwen had essentially little or no physical contact with her parents or siblings really at all. That is
heartbreaking.
It's heartbreaking, and it's like an extreme detriment to her development.
Obvious. Yeah, clearly.
Yeah. So right there, we've discussed before what this can do to a person and the lasting effects that can have. But just as a reminder, children who are not held or shown affection at a very early age are at a much higher risk for developmental problems and mental health issues growing up. There has even been some research that shows that a lack of human contact and love during infancy can lead to nutritional issues, delay in physical growth, and has even led to death in some cases. There's actually a theory that is floating around out there that this is the reason that orphanages years ago, when there was like, orphanages everywhere with like, young children with nowhere to go, that orphanages had such a high infant mortality rate was because there was no one there to hold them and comfort them, which is like the saddest. I know.
Sign me up.
Where can I sign up to be a baby cuddler at an orphanage? I know this is not like Paris in the, early 1900s where that's a thing.
That was one of my most favorite days in nursing school when we were doing,
like
I'm
nursery?
pretty sure it was the maternity. And it was interesting because that was probably even, 2007 maybe? And I volunteered that day to be in the nursery, right? But it's interesting now because they really don't have babies in the nursery. They're all in room with moms.
Yeah.
So even just in that 15, 17 year time frame.
They really only had babies in the nursery when I worked in labor and delivery. If there was a medical issue going on and they needed to be assessed and be on the warmer and have those vital signs taken and all of that. Otherwise, the babies pretty much stayed in with mom unless.
Which is the way it should be.
Yeah, exactly.
Love it.
So it's great.
I don't know how I would have done way back then if you had to be in a nursery. But anyway.
I mean, I feel like that was just more of the cultural norm back then, like they wanted like mom and dad to just rest.
You went through an ordeal.
During infancy and toddlerhood, a critical amount of learning, both social and emotional, takes place. And without that like love and physical contact, they essentially miss out on this like very fundamental connection.
For sure.
And there's data out there suggesting that things like ASPD and other psychiatric illnesses can stem from this exact thing. It can also lead to something called attachment disorder in children, which is essentially like a lack of attachment to their set caregivers. And then they get like overly affectionate with other children and adults because they just don't know where to put all of these feelings. And so that's like a real concern. And it's a big safety issue because they have like no social boundaries and like no fear of strangers, none of that healthy boundary stuff that we have.
Right.
It's giving Jolly Jane. Because Jolly Jane, remember, she had that same issue as a child. Something. That was like one of the worst childhoods I think I've read about with her. So when she left California as a young child, Graham later states that as she grew up on this farm, she was both physically and sexually abused by her father. So she started acting out a little bit, like in her school age years, showing signs of the more serious mental health issues as a result of the abuse. And there's a quote in here that I'll read that says, quote, Gwen would burn herself with cigarettes and cut herself with razors, end quote. So she was like, even at a very young age, was into like the self-harm stuff, which
that's hard.
It's just so sad. This is a very sad story. Gwen also later on described an incident in which she was about 8 or 9 years old, and her family dog, who she was very attached to, was running around on the farm, as dogs do, and the dog accidentally spooked a horse. And so apparently her dad was so upset and bothered by this that he had her big brother kill the dog, shoot the dog.
Oh, I thought you were going to say that.
Yeah.
And I was hoping you weren't.
So now the dog was very special to Gwen. And when this happened, she was just absolutely crushed. She was devastated. And this is where that like altered emotional processing comes in. Because like when her family goes and they bury the dog. And so she goes out and digs the dog's corpse out of the ground and removes the dog's teeth and keeps the teeth.
Well.
And puts the dog back in the ground. And then
she removed the teeth?
Yes.
Herself?
And she took these teeth back to her room and stored them in a little box, a little heart-shaped box. So, like, I understand, like, the keepsake thing, and I understand...
It's also sounds like the only thing she's ever been attached to.
Yes,
So,
very much so.
yeah.
Like, she doesn't really have that bond with literally anything else. But I mean, like, I get, like, keeping, like, a tuft of fur or, like, a collar. Like, that's all normal, but, like... And, like, I even get keeping teeth. I get it. I get it. If you're a kid and you have nothing else, I get it. But the process, the intense process of digging up your dog's corpse
and removing
the dog's teeth by yourself, like, it's not like this, you know, those don't just, like, fall out.
Right.
Like, that's intense for an 8 or 9-year-old kid, okay?
A little bit.
So,
yeah, for sure.
And she remembered later on, like, you know, this was something that just really stuck with her. Not necessarily like the having the teeth, but like the fact that her father killed this dog, or had her brother kill this dog. Like, that just stuck with her forever. It's just something that was very traumatizing for her. And she would also go on to say that at a young age, she would fantasize about hurting animals and hurting people. So we're getting into that, like,
here we go, that pattern,
kind of classic pattern, you know. She also starts with the rule-breaking, law-breaking behavior, and she starts to do, like, some shoplifting and some stealing, and even as she got older, she did end up having, like, run-ins with the law because of this, and she would get in trouble at school, and then, you know, she would come home, and her father would punish her, and it was, like, this vicious, never-ending cycle of just terrible things happening for her. As a teen, she was diagnosed with scoliosis, which is an abnormal curvature of the spine that can affect kids and teens as they grow. And her doctor had her wear a back brace. So nowadays, the braces for scoliosis are, like, pretty low profile. You can pretty much wear them under, like, some bulky clothes and really, like, not even really notice them. But back in the 70s...
I'm sure it was a hunka.
This is a full metal jacket, okay? And so she had, like, a head brace with, like, the bars going down the neck and like the whole external. I mean, she was probably looking like a real robot. So this was even more isolating for her. Like, she really had no one. And now she's getting bullied relentlessly.
Right. She probably looked like a Frankenstein.
Exactly. And, like, kids, you know, have never been nice.
No.
And they're still not nice.
No.
And they were probably not nice to her about this. So essentially already, like, socially handicapped from just her lack of those fundamental developmental things that she needed as a child that she didn't get. And now she's being bullied relentlessly. And it's just, this was a huge blow for her and a huge setback. So she started getting into fights at school here and there. She's breaking the law a little bit more. Things are kind of deteriorating. Her grades are not awesome. Finally, in her junior year in 1980, she dropped out of high school. So she's like, I'm done. She didn't really apply herself, like I said, because she was getting into a lot of trouble. The following year after that, she gets another arrest for shoplifting. And then shortly after that, after she was released, she got in, like, this big brawl and got arrested for assault and battery.
Oh, wow.
It kind of seems like after those two events, she tried, like, turning over a new leaf a little bit, because after those two arrests, she went and got her GED. Which is no easy feat from what I hear.
Right.
I hear that's very hard.
Yes.
I don't know about the 70s, but at least nowadays it is. And from there, she does briefly enroll in nursing school. And she goes through, you know, a few months of that, decides it's really not for her, drops out of nursing school, but did walk away with her LNA or CNA certificate.
Okay.
So she now has means for more gainful employment. Good for her. So she decides that she's, like, so done with Texas. She's done with the farm. She wants to leave, start anew somewhere. And now that she's got this CNA certification, you know, I've got this nice certification I can use to get, like, a decent job in healthcare.
Yes.
And maybe use that as a springboard if I want to pursue something else later down the road. So, for those who don't know, today they're most commonly known as LNAs, or licensed nursing assistants.
And I think that also depends on the state, too.
It does. Yeah, it does. And in most states, because it's no longer a certified nurse's assistant, it is a licensed nursing assistant. You now require a license in most states from the Board of Nursing in order to practice. So the career has like been sort of elevated through the years, actually.
Yep.
And
the duties and
exactly. So the scope is very well defined now through the board. And I will say I was an LNA for several years through college.
As was I.
As were you.
Absolutely.
And I still use like I've always said, if you can work as an LNA while you're in nursing school, if you want to be a nurse, please do it. I still use skills today that I learned and perfected as an LNA, even as an NP, and you do too as a DON.
We've done it side by side.
We've done it together.
Last week.
This week we were wiping bums together.
Come around.
Yes, it happens. Believe it or not, the DON and the NP, we wiped some butts.
We're not just behind a desk.
No, we are not.
No, we're not.
Some of you may think that, but
that's okay.
That's okay, because we know we're not. Exactly. So LNAs are
amazing,
extremely valuable. Okay.
Absolutely.
Don't get Devin started, because look at her.
I love you.
We
can't say it
love
enough.
you. Collectively, healthcare loves you. They work in a variety of settings. So hospitals, really in any setting. So ICUs, EDs, procedural areas.
Home healthcare.
Yes, home health, nursing homes, clinics, really anywhere. You can be an LNA. So essentially, their duties include mobilizing patients that can't mobilize themselves, providing skin care, taking vital signs, repositioning people, assisting them for their personal care and activities of daily living. They can operate specialized equipment in order to move patients. I mean, for some patients, that's no easy feat. There are giant machines called Hoyer lifts, if you're not familiar, and stand lifts and other types of equipment. And it's complicated and can get real hairy sometimes.
Yes, it can.
So doing that and doing it well, doing it efficiently and doing it safely is a process. And you do need to be trained pretty specialized.
And for multiple people at the same time. We're not just talking for one person.
Oh, no. This is person after person after person.
We're talking about 12 people a day, you know, your assignment.
Exactly. And they receive special training in how to manage the care of people with cognitive issues, with dementia. I mean, that's not something you just walk in and know how to do.
Nope.
That's something that is its very own little science. So really, they're the ones that keep the patients clean, happy, healthy, dignified. I would also argue that they spend the most physical time with the patients.
Absolutely. More than a nurse would.
And yeah, exactly. And they are often the first to notice and report a problem.
I just told my LNAs the other day, I was having some staff meetings. And so with my nursing staff, I celebrated our rehospitalization rate, right? With our nurses and talking about how far we've brought our skills to bring that rate down.
Yeah.
I also did the same thing with my LNAs because they're the first to report.
Yes.
So-and-so's really not eating today.
Yeah.
They've had no urine output.
It starts with
They are off today. They are more confused than what they
Yes.
normally are. It starts with them.
Always.
And they have you are an asset to that rate, to preventing someone from going to the hospital. It's not just a nurse.
Yep.
It's absolutely starts with them.
100%. So while they work very closely with nurses, I'm just going to explain the difference a little bit just for those who aren't in nursing so that you know sort of the distinguishing factors here. So the difference there is that nurses, when you're an LPN and RN, there's an additional layer of the specialized assessment skills, medication administration, pharmacology, performing certain procedures like catheter insertion, IVs, things like that. A whole bunch more that I can't even really list in this episode because we don't have time. But that's really the big distinguishing factor there is medications, procedures, and assessment is more nursing when nursing assistants do a lot of the physical care.
It's the things that we do for ourselves every single day.
Oh, exactly.
And multiple times a day that the elderly or anyone, depending on what their need is, can't do themselves any longer for whatever reason.
Exactly. So the setting that these ladies worked in was long-term care, dementia care, and like subacute rehab. So similar or identical to the setting that we work in.
Every day.
So they would most likely be performing daily physical care for the debilitated patients, including bathing, dressing, skin care, oral care, all of that, assistance with mobility, transfers, taking vital signs. They would not be handing out medications or performing invasive procedures. That's left to the nurses, just so everybody has an idea of what the day-to-day is for them. So She gets her licensure. She leaves Texas. And this is her opportunity to kind of leave her abusive father and leave that sort of behind.
Move on with your life.
Yeah. So she starts anew by relocating to Grand Rapids, Michigan in the early 1980s. So 1986 is when she makes this move. So she's 24 at this point. She finds work at Alpine Manor. And this is a nursing home, which is in a suburb of Grand Rapids. And this place provided skilled rehab, which is like people get out of the hospital, they have a hip fracture, and they're not able to go home quite yet because they can't quite walk, but they also don't need to be in the hospital. Yeah. And they just spend a week or two there, sometimes a little bit longer, getting their strength back. But they also have a long-term care wing where patients live.
That's their home.
Yep, that's their home. So it was here that she started working here. She actually falls in with this group of friends at work. This is a group of nursing coworkers, nurses and LNAs. And she was like very quickly accepted by them. A few of them happened to be gay. And this was sort of her first encounter with coming from Texas, being in a place where, you know, it's a very conservative environment, a very conservative father. This was not something that was really talked about.
Her exposure was probably pretty limited.
Very limited, even at school. So coming here and like having people sort of is in the 80s being sort of out and talking about this in a place like Grand Rapids, which was a little bit more liberal, was a new experience for her. So she falls in with this group of friends. She's having a great time. She's going out, she's partying a little bit. She's sort of living on her own for the first time and just like kind of in her element.
Good for her.
It was here that she meets Kathy Wood.
Dun, dun, dun.
So,
tell us about Kathy.
I shall. Kathy's background is equally unfortunate.
Uh-oh.
So, Catherine May Wood was born March 7th, 1962 in Soap Lake, Washington. So
Soap Lake.
It was also reported later on that she also grew up in an abusive and neglective home. Neglectful. Not neglective. Neglectful is the word.
Yep.
She was one of two girls. She later said that she was very shy in school, really didn't have many friends. People close to her described her as a very quiet, a bit antisocial type. She kind of chronically sought approval and positive attention from her parents and felt like she just never got it. So sort of a similar situation to what Gwen's household was like. At age 17, she actually became pregnant with her then boyfriend Ken's child. She later admitted to getting pregnant on purpose so that she would be allowed to leave her abusive home.
Oh.
Yeah, which is sad.
Yeah.
So she and Ken married when she was just 17 in 1979. So very, very young mom, very young married couple. Kathy's daughter is born, and this is when things sort of start to get a little weird in the household. So Ken would later say that her behavior towards her daughter was very atypical of a new mom, or any mom in general, even a young new mom. So she seemed indifferent with her daughter, didn't want the baby snuggles, didn't make eye contact, like...
So in the very similar way that she was treated as a baby.
Very similar, probably, or at least similar to we know Gwen was treated that way. And Ken actually later said that it was as if she was born without that mothering instinct. Like she just did not have that. Which some people, like, I don't judge you for not wanting children or wanting to have children, but she acted like she really did not want her daughter or have any desire to interact with her at all.
Sad.
She would often seem irritated at all the parenting tasks and the time commitment. Like, I shouldn't need to be doing this. Like things like feeding, diapers, like watching her, things like that. And it was evident to Ken that Kathy felt very held back. You know, she felt like, well, I'm young. Like, I should be able to like go out and party and like live my life. And it's like, well,
but I got this baby.
You had a kid and got married. So
yeah,
no. So he also started noticing that she was gaining a lot of weight, which, I mean, that happens. But I read at one point that she had gone from being about an average height and weight for an adult woman her age to weighing about 400 pounds. Oh. So, and it was in like over like a few years. So like a fairly short amount of time. So he also saw that the home was starting to deteriorate. Like, she really wasn't taking care of herself. She wasn't taking part in, like, taking care of the home. She wasn't wanting to take care of her child, or she wasn't really wanting to take care of anything.
Major signs of depression
major, right? Like, so the years go on. Her daughter gets older. Nothing ever really improves. It all kind of stays the same. So Ken is thinking, like, okay, let's maybe encourage you to, like, go out and get a job. Maybe it's because you're spending so much time in the home and you're feeling kind of trapped and, like, you kind of lose I mean, we all lose ourselves a little bit when we become parents.
It's part of that transition and figuring yourself out.
Exactly. But, like, it's been years,
yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think he seemed to really care about Kathy. And they get divorced down the line, spoiler alert, but it seems like he always kind of, like, comes from a place from really trying to help, and he cares about their daughter a lot. And I think he was really trying to help, and he maybe just didn't realize that these are all very, like, disturbing signs.
Did I miss it? Did you say his age? Is he a lot older?
Not a lot older.
Okay,
I think he was only
like
18 or 19.
Mature. Okay, but similar.
Yeah,
okay.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, I mean, we all recognize these as signs of, like, severe depression, right? Like, there's obvious mental health issues here. And I think he's, like, again, just trying to help, but maybe, you know, I kind of wish he would have been like, oh, you're depressed, you need a different kind of help. You know what I mean? But I digress. So Kathy eventually does just that. She goes out and she starts working. So she gets
I'm surprised that she takes on a caregiver role.
Yeah, I know.
So that's surprising to me.
I know. So
it's like anti what she wants to do.
Well, we're going to get into more so in part 2, the psychiatric stuff and the reasons why I think she chose to work in this environment, which essentially is so that she could have what she had at her disposal, like victims.
Boy. Oh, God.
Yeah.
Oh, God.
Which is just so incredibly sad.
Oh, God.
So, again, Ken is thinking, I'm going to encourage her to get a job. Maybe this is going to help her mental health. So she goes out, she gets her CNA certification at a local course, and she, in 1985, begins working at Alpine Manor. So
a year after.
A year before.
A year before, you're right.
Yep. So she's here. She gets integrated with this group of friends. This group of friends, this core group there that works there, would later say, we would all go out, like, to bars and, hang out and, sometimes we would hook up and things would get kind of funky and, like, that was fine. And they all kind of, like, unwind together and hang out outside of work. And her friends kind of noticed, even before she and Gwen got together, that Kathy had, like, a dark side. And it seemed like she would be very manipulative for, like, no real reason at all. She would lie for no real reason at all, like, about really stupid things that don't really make any sense. And then she also would start shit. Like, she would like to pit her friends against each other on purpose, just for, like, the sake
to see
of
what happens,
causing drama. Like, while they, like, liked her on the surface, it kind of seemed like they were picking up that she had, like, kind of a streak.
Right.
You know what I mean? So the following year, 1986, is when Kathy meets this new girl at work, Gwen Graham. So Gwen and Kathy hit it off right away. So they're all integrated into this group of friends together. They're all now going out together, partying, having fun. Gwen is integrating into the culture pretty quickly. And now everyone's, like, partying. The two had a lot in common, right? Because they had similar backgrounds, similar upbringing, both in an abusive home. Similar challenges, and they were both very close to the same age, like within, less than a year of each other.
They're probably feeling like we're the same person.
Like serendipitous that we're together, right?
Yes. So that's how I feel about you.
Exactly. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Oh. So suddenly, both women who are somewhat chronically seeking approval and attention from someone, anyone, literally anyone, have now met someone who is giving them a lot of attention, and they get very close very quickly. And the attraction from each side was, like, very apparent very early on. So very quickly, the two begin an affair. And around the time their affair began, Kathy very quickly divorces her husband, Ken, after 7 years of being together.
Oh.
And once the romance between Wood and Graham like really heated up, which again, all of this happened very quick. We're going to talk about how very quick this happened. Wood, Kathy, like, so she leaves her husband and her daughter. And
I was just going to ask that.
She starts this like dramatic diet, lost like hundreds of pounds in a few months, like lost a considerable amount. Well, that can happen when you're like heavier, I think.
Hundreds?
I watched Dr. Now.
In a few months?
Yes.
Is that healthy?
I didn't say it was healthy. I said it can happen if you just eat a couple of celery sticks and nothing else.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good for her.
So anyway, she's losing a lot of weight. She's kind of trying to turn, you know, like really putting all of her attention on Gwen. These two kind of get sucked into each other really quickly.
It's like a fatal attraction.
It literally is. And pretty much as soon as Kathy leaves her husband, she moves in with Gwen in her apartment. So she's leaving her husband and her child and moving in with Gwen, with this new girlfriend.
Okay.
So now from here, there are sort of two different narratives as to how everything went, because as it always goes during the investigation and the trial, these two have turned against each other, and they both have sort of different stories as to exactly who did what. So it's not exactly known which one of these women is like the mastermind and the other one kind of was manipulated. Or maybe it's just a situation where they're both equally depraved and they both, you know, we don't know the exact truth of who did what. So we're working on accounts provided by both women as, you know, we've gone down the road. So we don't know who's really steering the ship. So I'm going to sort of go through the events themselves and then the accounts that they each sort of made against each other. So Gwen Graham has long maintained her complete innocence in this situation. And by complete innocence, I mean that she was manipulated by Kathy Wood, who was sort of the
orchestrator
of everything, and that Kathy was the one that committed the actual murders, and that Gwen was always like the lookout and the conspirator, but never actually killed anybody.
Gotta own your shit, girl.
Of course, Kathy Wood says the exact opposite. So she says, no, Gwen was actually the mastermind. I was manipulated, and she's the one that actually did all the murdering. So, according to Gwen, Kathy Wood would start bringing up when they were together that she really wanted to kill someone. And, we should kill someone together.
Yeah, because that's what new lovers talk about.
Because that's fucking normal.
Yep.
We can kill someone here.
That's pillow talk.
Where we work. It would be so easy.
Oh, God. Oh, God.
And so Gwen initially thought, like, this is fucking weird way to joke. Like, weird joke, but okay. She can't be serious, though. Like,
right.
You know. So now there are reports then that during their sexy time, they would enjoy some, like, BDSM type of intimacy, which in and of itself, as long as everyone is consenting and happy and into it.
You do you.
Get it, girl. Good for you. Enjoying kinky BDSM sex does not make one a depraved serial killer.
That
not judging
should be like the disclaimer of the episode.
Yes.
That is the disclaimer at the bottom.
Just to preface, we are not judging anyone's sexual preferences. Being a depraved serial killer is a totally separate issue. So both Gwen and Kathy later revealed that they would engage in sex like this, and then Gwen stated that Kathy would particularly enjoy tying Gwen down and holding a pillow over her face until she was on the verge of blacking out. Like, she at one point, like, was shaking and, like, had what sounds like a seizure from lack of oxygen. Like, it got very extreme during these moments. So,
wow.
It was at this point that Gwen said that she started realizing Kathy might actually be serious about being really into killing someone or watching someone die. So
she didn't think to tell anyone?
Exactly. So, and then again, you ask Kathy what happened. She says, no, this was all Gwen. Gwen is the one that made me pass out with the pillow on my face. And Gwen was the one making jokes about killing people. And Gwen was the one that wanted to kill people in the first place. And I just went along with it.
No.
So
I got a lot
again,
to say right now.
I,
And I have a full episode and a half because
I
you said it's a
know.
two-parter
I know.
to get it all out of me.
I
So.
know. This is a lot. So, either way, so it was at this point that the two decided to solidify their bond and bring themselves closer together by starting to kill some of the residents that they were taking care of at Alpine.
Listen, get a fucking matching tattoo to solidify your bond. Do blood sister things. Give yourself a little cut. Whatever.
Go on a fucking spa day trip together.
You couldn't get married back then. It wasn't legal.
Get a fucking puppy.
Buy a house.
I mean,
you don't have to solidify.
Maybe start with a plant.
With murder.
Get like a nice spider plant. See if you can manage that for a while. So
you don't have to solidify any commitment.
No.
With
murder. You don't have to do anything with murder. Just don't murder.
Yeah, that's, valid.
So this like rampage, as we're going to call it, lasted 3 months.
Oh, God.
So this was from January 1987 through April 1987. So January through April of that same year.
37 years ago.
So,
and there's only one reason I know why it's 37 years ago.
Because we were born at this time. I was born in 86.
I'm about to have a birthday.
87.
You were not born in 86.
Bye.
Try
Getting up.
again.
I'm done.
Try again.
Goodbye. Yikes. I'm becoming senile.
It's because we're turning 37.
Yeah.
That's why.
So this is like how fast everything transpired, right? So they had just met, just moved in together, like months ago. And all of a sudden, they're on a murderous rampage. A very quick murderous rampage together. This all was very fast. So again, who came up with what and who drove what, we don't know. But their testimonies each stated that the other felt that murdering people together would bring them closer together and essentially bind them to one another.
I mean, it does.
I mean, sure.
In a non-healthy way.
Yeah, I mean, that's a real kind of a weirdo bond, but like whatever. I think that for whomever sort of pushed this, it was a way for one of them to sort of trap the other into the relationship too. So whichever one was like the mastermind here, I think the other one was
because I know what you did. You can't go anywhere.
Exactly. So I think that was.
I have this on you.
You were fucking locked in now. We each have this on each other. We're not going to go anywhere. So they also both talked often about getting a sexual thrill at the thought of killing, and were like excited from a sexual standpoint to murder people.
Nope.
That one I don't understand. So
I mean, that doesn't really do it for me.
No.
So
that's not part of BDSM. That's a whole other situation. So the initial plan that they came up with was for them to murder people by asphyxiation or smothering, targeting the more debilitated patients who could not defend themselves. Each of their victims suffered from Alzheimer's disease to at least some degree. Devin and I care for a huge number of people with Alzheimer's, so this is like particularly like striking a nerve.
I have people now coming into my head.
Yes.
That I care for every day as you're starting to give. Like,
that we're both very attached to.
Like,
yes.
I'm just.
It's like the thought of someone doing, like abusing someone in that way is just like horrifying. So
I want to make it very clear that first of all, at least Gwen, if this was now, would not be employed at long-term care.
Right.
Because background checks.
Yeah, she has a criminal record.
Assault and you can have a quote unquote criminal,
but
like
assault and battery, violent crimes.
Battery, done.
Yes.
You will never work in that type of setting.
healthcare.
Yes.
Yeah.
No.
Absolutely.
So like let's just take that into account. That clearly the screening process for getting a license or a certification at that point in time was null and void.
Right.
Essentially none.
Yep.
So let's take solace in that as we're about to hear this horror.
Those of us that have worked in healthcare, probably all of us have encountered somebody with Alzheimer's, either in school or during work. And maybe some of us have someone in our families that suffer from Alzheimer's. I know that I certainly did.
Same.
My grandparents on my mother's side. So
Same. My grandmother.
Yes.
On my mother's side.
So Alzheimer's disease is a neurocognitive disorder, and it is the most common cause of dementia. So it accounts for 60 to 80% of dementias in older people in the United States. And an estimated 10% of people over 65 have Alzheimer's disease. That's 1 in 10 people have Alzheimer's disease.
Yeah. I have zero doubt. I'm sure I will be one of them.
Oh, probably.
And it's so like,
Yeah.
It's
a sad thought because when you never think it's going to happen to you. Like, these people did not think that they were going to end up,
of course,
that debilitated and that, you know, in rough shape. And it's just so sad that that's how it ends for so many people. So the disease is twice as common among women as it is among men. And partly because women have a longer life expectancy. And then
so greater the risk of
exactly as you get older, the greater the risk. And at age 85, once you reach age 85, you have a greater than 32% chance of being diagnosed with Alzheimer's.
Coincidentally, though, my 100-year-old grandfather that passed away in October, nope.
Wow.
All of his faculties.
Good for him.
Every single one of them.
Good for him.
Amazing.
It's amazing. That really is amazing. It really is. The risk of developing the disease is typically best predicted by age, but about 5 to 15% of cases are familial. And then there's other certain risk factors like high blood pressure, diabetes, smoking, and having like a sedentary lifestyle. All of that can increase your risk of developing Alzheimer's. The most common first symptoms or the first manifestations are loss of short-term memory. So like asking repeated questions, forgetting and misplacing objects, forgetting where why you were walking into a room. I've done that.
But getting lost in familiar surroundings.
Exactly. Yeah. So
I think, God, I don't know if you mentioned this, but I think the most devastating one that's got to be is early onset.
Oh, it's horrible.
Where people in their 40s. I mean, we're not far from that.
No.
And with little children developing early onset. And I've seen a few of them where they're admitted to a nursing home in their 50s and not knowing who their spouse is, who their family is at 50-something years old.
We're going to talk about this first victim.
Oh, God.
Who was early onset.
It's so devastating.
It is absolutely devastating.
So devastating.
And then you feel like as a caregiver, this person's gone. I've already lost them. You know, they may still be alive, but it's not them anymore.
It's like,
and like
going through death twice.
Oh, 100%. Like there's a whole grieving process when this person is no longer them. You don't have that person anymore. And it's devastating. It's devastating for caregivers and loved ones. It really is. So, other symptoms include like difficulty handling more complex tasks, like making lists of things. That gets more difficult. Poor judgment, poor safety awareness. People start being able to not manage their bank accounts and finance as well. Language dysfunction. So starting to like make errors in speaking and writing and
losing your words.
Exactly. So this is a progressive disease, always. So Alzheimer's starts, things are very mild. It then progresses. It can plateau for periods of time, but it will always resume and continue. And the decline continues. Eventually, it impairs cognition to a degree that impairs mobility, swallowing, speech. Eventually, all of these things lead to death. So though these people, most of whom are elderly and cognitively, don't have the capacity in most situations to react or fight back. So this is the population that they're targeting. Their families have placed them in these facilities to get the specialized care that they need and to be kept comfortable and clean and happy so that perhaps they can maybe enjoy like the tiny bit of quality of life they might have left, even if they don't always know what's going on around them. So the fact that they victimized people in this state is
I'm
terrifying.
I'm heartbroken, and you haven't even told me what
these
they've
are
done.
Terrifying people. Horrifying. Some of the worst. I can't even. So this gets very sick and twisted. The initial plan, listen to this. The initial plan was that they wanted to kill people and spell out the word murder with the first letter of their names.
No.
I swear.
Of the patients that they would choose.
Yeah. So like their first victim's name.
Come on.
Their first victim's name would start with an M, and so on and so forth until they spelled out the word murder. This is a fucking game.
That is
It is a fucking game.
Wow.
It is sick.
Wow.
As such, in January 1987, they shared later on in their lives that their first victim's name was Marguerite Chambers, M for Marguerite. This was a 60-year-old woman with advanced Alzheimer's. This was a long-term resident of Alpine who had been diagnosed with early onset Alzheimer's. And she was residing there due to the associated cognitive decline. She was also the pair's youngest known victim. She was minimally verbal and confused at her baseline, but otherwise still physically functional because she's 60. The pair later reported that one of them acted as a lookout, while the other one held a folded washcloth over Marguerite's mouth and a second rolled washcloth over her nose, and slowly suffocated 60-year-old Marguerite Chambers to death. A woman with Alzheimer's disease who's just trying to live out her days with some peace and dignity. And this is how she meets her end. To get a couple of people off. The pair stated that after this happened, they had a sexual encounter in an empty room at the nursing home.
Come on.
With it fresh in their minds.
Oh, this is sick.
Literally the sickest.
This is sick.
And that was the first of many encounters they would have trying and succeeding to kill a bunch of people in the nursing home they worked in. And that's where we leave us for part 1.
I'm not okay.
I know.
I am very passionate.
I know.
About what I do.
I know.
I am very passionate about the long-term care setting.
Yes, you are. You always have been.
It's not for everybody.
Mm-mm.
But I'm a firm believer that I found my niche in this type of setting.
Totally.
And to let these people, let those that we care for, live out their lives. Some of them don't even know that they're living out their lives because they don't even know who they are.
No.
And let their families know that they're safe and well cared for. And I mean, gosh, I get upset if someone doesn't even appear,
if someone
groomed
forgot
the way that they should.
Yeah, if someone didn't have their socks put on this morning. That's a big issue. Yeah.
Healthcare in 2024 and in long-term care has its problems.
Mm-hmm.
But I am so thankful that we have the regulations that we do.
Yes, agreed.
A lot of people will, gripe and say that the manual for a long-term care survey, we have more regulations than a nuclear power plant.
And
that
so
is
true.
Factually true.
Yes, it is. Yeah.
That is factually true.
Mm-hmm.
That there are more regulations on a long-term care facility than in a nuclear power plant. And it is because of that.
Yes.
Right there.
Mm-hmm.
And it's sick people like that over the decades that nursing homes have been around.
Yes.
That have made it that way.
Yes.
So anytime someone wants to gripe and bitch and whatever because of the jobs being so hard because of the regulations.
This is why.
This is why. And you know what? I'd rather have all of the book of regulations
than this
to follow and make sure that the people are well cared for and safe and get the highest quality of care than to let something like that slip.
Yes.
Under your nose.
Mm-hmm.
And
me and Devin, so you guys know we work in the same long-term care setting right now and we love working together, but I also love the people, the residents. Mm-hmm. And we have both built, I think, really awesome relationships with some of these people, and a lot of them have dementia.
Mm-hmm.
And it like crushes me. The thought of someone doing this to anybody is really mind-boggling, but to victimize somebody in that state is, and like they worked there for like a period of time. Like they knew these people, they cared for these people. Like these were not strangers to them. These are people that they saw every day when they came to work.
And their families.
Yes, and their families. Like how completely devoid of humanity does someone have to be to do something like this? Unbelievable, right?
Yeah.
And I'll give you just like a little like snippet from part 2. We're going to talk about, you know, what led to like the people discovering what they were doing and like their, you know, their arrests and things like that. And, you know, some like initial thoughts were like, well, maybe these were mercy killings, you know, maybe they felt like, oh, well, they, you know, really felt bad for people in this state and they were just existing and they didn't have any quality of life and they were like ending their suffering. And, actually Ken, Kathy's ex-husband, actually posed that question, like when he was talking to Kathy about what they did. And, Kathy said, no, that's not true. We didn't do this as mercy killings. We did it because it was fun.
We wanted to get off.
We did it because it was fun, is what she said. We did it because it was fun.
We don't get to play God.
No, sorry. You do not.
We don't get to play God. There's already a fine line in long-term care. You know, there's
not that would have made it okay.
There's a lot of hesitancy and controversy around morphine.
Yeah.
And some nurses, especially newer nurses, or sometimes older nurses.
Yeah.
You know, not wanting to give that last dose of morphine. What did that, you know,
like, and it's a lack of understanding. Morphine does not hasten death.
Absolutely not. But there's that controversy about it depending on someone's understanding. In me, there's no controversy.
Yeah.
Give someone that quality.
Please give me all of the morphine when I'm in that state.
Give someone the absolute ease to breathe and to have a peaceful passing. But I've heard nurses before, like, I don't want my dose to be the one that has them go because I don't want to have to make that decision. Or like,
but you're not.
You're not. Yeah. And that's what you've had to educate. But you have some people who have thought that way.
Yes.
And they just need more insight on quality of passing and death care and whatnot. This is sick.
Beyond.
This is
I'm having a hard time with it because
I was not prepared for this.
I'm sorry. Are you ever prepared for what I bring to you?
No, but damn it.
I know.
All right.
I've been telling you, I really did want to cover this case, and maybe that's why this case is now like jumping out at me and like, you really have to cover this because I feel like it's an important story to tell. And
we now work together in the same environment.
Yes.
I'm now obviously a director of nursing at a long-term care facility. So it's like, you know, quality of care is always in my mind. That is the number one thing that I go to work to do every day and to make sure that my staff uphold that. And this is not that fire under me even more to just make sure that we are doing all the right things and that our integrity is held high.
Yep.
Oh, okay.
Okay.
With that said, thank you for listening, everyone. Thank you for watching on our YouTube channel. And if you want to keep following us, you can search for us on Facebook at MedCrimes Podcast.
You can X at us at MedCrimes PC. I don't check it though, so.
You can find us on Instagram at MedCrimes Podcast.
If you wish to become a Patreon, you can join us at www.patreon.com/MedCrimesPodcast.
If you want to send us an email, positive feedback, constructive feedback, any crazy stories, comments, anything, you can email us at medcrimes@gmail.com.
Stay safe out there.